value of demonstrative evidence, something that, other than words, that will show to the tribunal, to the court, to the panel of judges, the point, other than just stating it. Well, you have just seen yesterday evening and this morning 4 parts of the demonstrative evidence why BBI has such a strong opportunity in the field of international arbitration. To have the Premier, as he did here, give such a strong supporting statement for international arbitration in BBI is something you would not find in many jurisdictions in the world. To have the Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court make the remarks that she just made and demonstrate the commitment of the court to its proper role in international arbitration is something that you would not find in many jurisdictions in the world. To have a leading arbitration practitioner and counsel, Lord Peter Goldsmith, bring the international perspective and to demonstrate that the international arbitration community can see the opportunities for the BBI is an important part of what's going to be necessary for success. And to hear, as we did yesterday evening, leading counsel from the BBI express their commitment and demonstrate the work that they and the late Dr. Archibald have done to make international arbitration a factor in the BBI economy, a factor in its financial services sector, and a factor in its legal system, is again demonstrative of the kind of support that many jurisdictions in the world would not have, and is important for the success of arbitration in BBI and for making BBI an international arbitration center. It's unlikely that it was a coincidence that Business BBI's lead article on Monday was the International Arbitration Conference, Opportunities to Broaden Horizons. And let me just read a few parts from the article, because I think it summarizes a lot of what we're talking about. And I should say, I probably should have actually said when I was talking about the support, there was actually a 5th part of the support we have seen in the demonstrative evidence, and that's the support of the business community demonstrated by what's going on here today. But it's not a legal organization that is putting on this conference. It is Russell Harrigan and Business BBI, and it is the business community that is also supporting arbitration, something you wouldn't find in many parts of the world. So the article began, "The prospects for BBI in the realm of international arbitration are burning brighter than ever. Arbitration, a method of dispute resolution compatible with both commercial and nation-state applications, is compelling because it offers cost-effective, well-managed, and flexible processes. It is a bona fide alternative to court-based litigation. As business continues to draw the world closer, arbitration continues to gain prominence," and we heard that in the remarks from Lord Goldsmith last night as well. "Experts say that the internationalization of the global economy and the parallel growth of international arbitration over the last 20 years currently shows no signs of slowing down. Additionally, there appear to be few realistic alternatives to international commercial arbitration." Pausing there, the main reason there is no realistic alternative in many cases is the enforcement aspect, which you have heard about, particularly in the remarks of the Chief Justice. The New York Convention on the Recognition and Enforcement of Foreign Arbitral Awards, having been extended to the BBI shortly ahead of the new arbitration law, is important, and we'll be hearing more about it, but you have had a strong reminder of that from the Chief Justice. Most countries in the world have signed on to the New York Convention. It makes arbitral awards much easier to enforce than court judgments internationally. There's an important reason why businesses that transact and invest across borders choose international arbitration, as the means to resolve any disputes that may arise in their business relationship, in their contracts. And that is the international enforcement aspect, exemplified by BBI being part of the New York Convention. The article in Business BBI continued, in short, international arbitration centers are primed for success. Lord Goldsmith cautioned, though, yesterday evening, that storm clouds are gathering. And he cited the example of what's happening now in Europe and moving into the United States, where in the investment treaty arbitration area, criticisms of arbitration are mounting, and those criticisms may well reflect on commercial arbitration among potential users, and that is something that would be very unfortunate indeed. The article in Business BBI then went on to say that with the new Act and the New York Convention, BBI is poised to join the ranks of other jurisdictions like Singapore and New York. And I would add to the list, of course, London and Paris, Hong Kong, Geneva, Stockholm, and Toronto. Lord Goldsmith segmented the market yesterday evening and spoke about Hong Kong and Singapore having led the way by taking the market from the old world centers to centers particularly like Hong Kong and Singapore, which have offered a more cost-effective approach in many cases, and where they bring better insights into the region where they're located, and can focus on serving in a more nuanced way the region in which they're located. He said they have reshaped the perception of and access to arbitration globally. And it's so that is the weight in which BBI can move this development towards using regional arbitration centers and being used by large businesses, by them having credibility. The article in Business BBI continued, these developments make it crucial for those in the financial services industry and even non-practitioners who would like to be in the know to learn all they can about the subject, to learn what it means for BBI, and to learn what they themselves will need to do to prepare for the coming boom in this sector. Primarily, this is not a conference for litigation lawyers about international arbitration law or how to handle international arbitration cases. What is this conference really about? As the Premier indicated, the conference is about the future of the BBI economy, or at least one aspect of that future. This International Arbitration Conference is about the important support infrastructure for a stronger financial services industry. It's not a coincidence that the leading financial centers on the planet also are leading international arbitration centers, and that they compete hard to build their dispute resolution businesses. When the International Chamber of Commerce was established in 1919, shortly after the end of the First World War, it soon established its International Court of Arbitration. It was not a court at all, in the sense that we know courts, but an institution to administer and promote the use of arbitration for the settlement of business disputes internationally. Why was arbitration an early priority for the ICC? Because the ICC considered, with great foresight, that providing a means for international commercial dispute resolution is a critical part of facilitating international commerce. And I should add, as did this ICC at the time, world peace. Today there's an arbitral institution being developed for similar reasons in the Middle East, the Jerusalem Arbitration Center. And there's a lesson to be learned from it. It's being established jointly by ICC Palestine and ICC Israel, with broad support from Palestinian and Israeli business people, and international support from the ICC based in Paris and the international arbitration community worldwide. Why is that? Because much of what the world does not know is that behind the political and military happenings between Israel and Palestine is approximately $5 billion of trade each year. It's a trade that goes on with no realistic means of resolving disputes, because neither the courts of Israel nor the courts of Palestine can do the job credibly or effectively. It's a recognition, then, of the importance that dispute resolution plays for the effective conduct of commerce. This conference is also about the future of BVI law firms and lawyers and other professionals. Why is that? The establishment of the commercial court in 2009 was an important step in support of the financial services industry in the BVI. And it enabled BVI law firms and lawyers to expand their practices and their revenues. International arbitration is an opportunity for BVI lawyers and those professionals that work with them in disputes to gain a share of the growing market in the dispute resolution world. In my view, it would be foolish for BVI law firms to focus their dispute practices just on court litigation and to watch from the sidelines as the arbitration segment expands globally. An important question, and I've heard it in talking with people here, and you hear it in talking with people who do court work in other jurisdictions: will the growth of arbitration reduce our work? Will it reduce the amount of disputes that are handled here? And I would say the answer is not at all. To the contrary, if BVI firms pull together, and they need to pull together, and they need to pull together not just in this jurisdiction, but in the region, because there are many examples of Canada being one, where you had competing centers, Switzerland being another, and it turns out you don't have one that can take the lead. So it's not just a question of working together within BVI, but we need to work together with the other members of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and the other countries in the region. But if the firms pull together, they can expand the dispute work done here, expand the transaction work done here, and create new opportunities. There's a number of reasons that I wish to highlight for that. First, there is at the front end the designing of effective arbitration clauses to suit the transaction, the parties, and the likely types of disputes. The Chief Justice referred to it as the careful drafting of those clauses, which is important. So that's the first area of work opportunity for the transactional lawyers and for disputes lawyers who work with them. Second, BVI litigators who learn how arbitration works, that it's not simply litigation done privately, can perform roles comparable to the roles they now perform in litigation, and they can perform expanded roles. Third, there will be court work related to and supportive of arbitration, and you've heard about that from the Chief Justice. Whether to compel arbitration, to gather evidence, to obtain interim relief that's not available or valuable in the arbitration proceeding, to deal with jurisdictional challenges, and to deal with the recognition and enforcement of awards or the setting aside of awards. Fourth, for arbitration seated in BVI, there will be roles for BVI legal practitioners on the issues that arise under the law of the seat. Those are BVI law issues, and dealing with them will create work for BVI lawyers. Fifth, if BVI seated arbitrations have BVI governing law, BVI legal practitioners will have a special role as counsel or in providing evidence of BVI law. And of course, to the extent that those disputes relate to BVI corporations, you have, of course, BVI law at the heart of them. Sixth, there can be opportunities for lawyers here to do work as arbitrators, either in addition to doing work as counsel or as full-time arbitrators when they reach that point in their careers when that becomes preferred direction. Lord Goldsmith spoke yesterday of his participation as an arbitrator. Certainly in my practice before coming here, I was doing 30 to 40% of my work as arbitrator, the balance as counsel. It's a common phenomenon in Europe and increasingly common in North America and other parts of the world. We also heard yesterday of Dr. Archibald's work as an arbitrator and as an adjudicator. Internationally, it's not uncommon, particularly outside North America, for lawyers in their 30s and early 40s to sit as arbitrators in smaller and mid-sized cases. There was a market because arbitrators from a region, sometimes in part because they have the understanding of the region, are appointed by parties in that region. So as arbitration grows, there will be opportunities for people in the region to sit as arbitrators. They will be appointed if they have the attributes and develop the attributes that people are looking for in arbitrators. Seventh, there are roles for lawyers, younger lawyers, serving as tribunal secretaries. That is a role somewhat comparable with a law clerk or judicial assistant in the courts. Some well-known rising stars in international arbitration began their careers, or part of their careers, working in that kind of a role. And eighth, there will be roles for lawyers with arbitral institutions and the institution that develops here. You've heard to some degree that the competition is heavy, and I would be doing a disservice to you and to arbitration and BBI if I were to say that international arbitration opportunities are low-hanging sweet mangoes that you can easily pick and enjoy. That's not so. International arbitration is very competitive. You got a whiff of that from what Lord Goldsmith said yesterday evening. You'll hear more of that today. The heavyweight jurisdictions are in the game in a big way. Those include the major regional centers like Hong Kong and Singapore, who have strong support locally, who have financial resources, who have been working at it, particularly in the case of Hong Kong, for a quarter of a century. They have established track records. And so they have competitive advantages. Also, as Lord Goldsmith explained yesterday evening, there are new entrants, some more recent than others, each trying to get a share of the pie with a geographic angle or an industry angle or a focus on some other special niche. Both the established players and the new entrants are competing by innovating in their arbitration rules, having expedited procedures, focusing on segments of the market. There's a few new institutions focusing on financial services or parts of the financial services industry. The ICC has woken up to that as an important part of the arbitration market, and people in the financial services world are starting to use arbitration more. Competition also comes, and there is a competitive aspect with commercial courts. Commercial courts are innovating, which means not only that you will see a choice with arbitration, but for example, places like Singapore, like Delaware, trying to find other ways to offer services in the public system that will be attractive to commercial users. And it's a lesson, of course, for our commercial court too, that we need to see what's happening in other areas and innovate. We need to be up on our game and competitive in that area. Lord Goldsmith pointed out yesterday evening that we need to find our own place. As I would put it, we need to find our own competitive advantages. BVI needs a strategy and tactics that plays to its strengths and minimizes the effects of its competitive disadvantages. Lord Goldsmith pointed out 8 competitive advantages, including the new Act, the New York Convention, the fact that parties here can be represented by practitioners of their choice, the strong government support, the focus and deliberate action is the way he put it, the effect of an independent judiciary, and I would add knowledgeable judiciary, both at the, hopefully at the first instance level where I sit and clearly at the appellate level. And BVI's financial services expertise and reputation, and the growth that is happening of the use of arbitration in that sector. And also there is the lack of a major regional center in this region. There is the opportunity to become that center. The competitive disadvantages that we heard about and will continue to hear about, air travel into BVI, air travel within the region, which I was astounded to find is much more difficult than I ever anticipated. Even the lack of business hotel facilities in Road Town, something that is noticeable and something that can be remedied easily and quickly. And we'll talk more about that later. But these are issues that are clearly on the government's agenda, and they are issues that will be solved, I am confident. As I reflected last night and early this morning on some of the comments, formally and informally yesterday, about whether the idea of BVI as an arbitration center is an unrealistic dream, in the expression that a former client of mine once used, dreaming in technicolor, which is maybe a pre-digital age expression. There are concerns that I share with those who've expressed them. I'll sometimes early on Saturday mornings walk with a group that some of you know about, the BVI Walkers, which meet at early on Saturday morning. Don Smith is one of the participants in that, and so Don and I have used that opportunity to talk about arbitration in BVI. And as we walked along a couple of weeks ago, enjoying the beautiful view along the water west of Road Town, Don said to me, and I think this is a compelling observation, that if we wait for all of the problems to be solved before beginning, we'll be waiting forever. That you have to begin, and that is what we're doing. So we need to build the center that is going to be built. We need to develop our strategy and our tactics, and we need to begin to implement. As she could have said, perhaps more briefly, as Nike says, just do it. Let me end with the other thought that came to me as I reflected on it. Some of you may recall a famous business strategy book by Jim Collins and Jerry Porras called From Good to Great. They were academics in the business arena. They looked at companies in the same industry that years ago were quite comparable, similar sizes, similar strengths, well regarded in their industries. And then they fast forwarded and saw that one of them had faded and the other had moved on to greatness in that industry. And they identified a number of factors in common among those that went on to greatness. Now, like all best-selling books, whether it's giving business advice or personal advice, they came up with catchy names for their factors. So in this case, one of the distinguishing factors for great companies was having what they called big, hairy, audacious goals. Thankfully, it's just a name with no acronym. The goal and what they explained it as is an audacious goal, a goal that seems just beyond your grasp. They're long-term or medium-term goals that certainly have less, often far less than 100% chance of success. BBI, as you've heard from the Premier, takes what I see as a corporate strategy approach to the country and to the economy, which is, of course, highly commendable. BBI, by deciding to aim to be an international arbitration center and charging the Financial Services Commission with making it happen, has adopted a big, hairy, audacious goal. For each and every one of us that has a part to play in trying to achieve that audacious goal, we can use today as an opportunity to help figure out for the country, for the legal community, for the financial community, for the government, for the Financial Services Commission, what we can do so that BBI has its best shot at achieving that goal. So you have had a look at the program. There are topics that I think are highly important. There are speakers who will bring to us some of the leading thinking in the world around arbitration centers and how to succeed. And so I look forward, as I hope all of you do, to an interesting, informative, and productive day. Thank you.